All right, so these are all questions of different versions of why what's causing the slowdown. Why are we not advancing more quickly, and what can we do about it? I actually think there are sort of like these. I often think there's this trichotomy that one can have. There's a question: has there been a technological slowdown? So what are the facts over the last 40 years? And that's sort of a complicated, long discussion. I think there has been. There's a lot of parts of computers, not a lot elsewhere, but that's sort of what I would say on the what. Why this has happened is, I think, important, but a very difficult question. My suspicion is that the why it's happened is very overdetermined. There probably are a whole series of different things. There's certain things that have been regulated very heavily. The world of atoms is more heavily regulated than the world of bits. I think there's a regulatory component. I think there's sort of ways where when things work, people try more. So because IT has been working, we attract more talented people into IT and has sort of a self-fulfilling aspect. And then when there are fields where there's been failure for a long time, fewer talented people go into these fields. So I think why is somehow very overdetermined. There's sort of a lot of different things that drive it. But I think the question of what should be done now is actually quite different from the why one, and you can probably answer what you do now without fully having an answer to the why question. Sort of like, it's like you're sick. Why did you get sick? What are you going to do? The questions are linked, but you can split those three up. And so I think we can always separate the why, what caused it, from the what do we do. And in fact, I think people often spend too much time on the why questions. It's sort of an excuse for interminable debate, and it prevents you from actually getting to work on solving things. So my basic answer is the way you get back to the future does not involve some sort of massive social transformation or trying to create some new religion or some new political order or anything like that. I think I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's necessary. I think what it involves is you just working on making the future happen and starting. So I had this debate in New York with this left-wing activist David Graeber, who says, we're not going to build bases on Mars until we have a completely new economic system. So you have to sort of have a huge revolution, get a whole new economic system, and then we'll be able to go to Mars and build bases on Mars. And I would say, if you want to build bases on Mars, the way to really start doing is you start by building bases on Mars. And this is sort of what my PayPal colleague Elon Musk set out to do in 10, 12 years ago when he started SpaceX. He started talking to various rocket scientists. How would we get to Mars? What would we do? And then you sort of start thinking about that, and you sort of gradually build a company around that. The SpaceX slogan is Occupy Mars, sort of a little bit different from the Occupy Wall Street movement. And that's how you. And it's not a political or cultural or religious thing. And I think the more general thing I would argue is that because technology is so countercultural in our time, and if you're trying to build towards a definite future that's different, you have to convince a few people of that. How do you you can convince a small number of people. You can start a small new company, and start going in a different direction. It's much harder to convince large masses of people in our society. And so I think and this is why I think there's so much room for startups, and why so much of this of progress will be driven by new small companies. There's no theoretical reason it has to only be new small companies. You could also imagine it being large companies or large nonprofits or large government agencies. But because we live in a world in which people, by and large, do not believe in the future as a definite concept, that actually limits the ability of large organizations to work towards a definite future. In the U.S. context, it would be impossible for the U.S. government to do a Manhattan Project today. It would be impossible to do Apollo. A letter from Einstein would get lost in the mailroom in the White House. It would be treated as a joke. Who is this man who thinks you can do all this stuff? This is so ridiculous. And you would never be able to sort of get the coordination needed to make something like that happen. And that's why I think progress will happen in small organizations. And if it can't happen in small organizations, it won't happen at all.